back, ballers. I'm Scotty, that's Sergio, and this is Talking Ball with Scotty and Sergio. It's official. The play-ins are done, and we are all set for the NBA playoffs, baby. On today's pod, we will break down the results from all the playing games and preview each playoff matchup and give our predictions. But first, Serge, how are you, brother? Long time.
I'm great, man. Just got back from Atlanta. Had a few days out in the countryside visiting a good old friend from Australia as well. He's out there. They're shooting a movie, so I had 3 or 4 days to get out of LA and live in the greens in the south. It was beautiful. So, but I'm happy to get back and happy to watch some ball. I watched some of the play-ins over there actually.
Yeah, we were talking the other night during the Lakers-Warriors game. Mate, it was we'll talk about it. We'll talk about how the play-ins went once we talk about all the games. But I've loved it, every second of it, Serge. Let's get straight into it. This is a longer pod today because we have a lot to talk about. But the first game, let's get into the play-ins. Let's talk about the East. The first game we had was the Indiana Pacers, the 9th seed Indiana Pacers, taking on the 10th seed Charlotte Hornets. Both teams were short on available players, with the Hornets missing Gordon Hayward and barely getting LaMelo Ball back from a broken wrist. The Pacers were missing Miles Turner, Karis LeVert, not to mention TJ Warren hadn't played most of the season. That being said, it was the Pacers who hit first, going up 14 in the first, and they never looked back, Sergio. Pacers had 8 players in double figures, including Brissett with 23, McDermott with 21 of 7 of 9 shooting, but Sabonis' 14 point, 21 rebound, 9 assists, triple-double, 144 to 117, and the first ever non-bubble playing game was done early. Serge, hard to see the Hornets get knocked out like that.
Yeah, I was picking the Hornets to win this game, but I think LaMelo's still coming back into form, and they just didn't have a lot of people step up. Terry Rozier didn't have a spectacular game. The only one who really played well was Bridges. The rest of the team kind of just didn't live up to the moment, and Indiana did the complete opposite. Indiana had multiple players play above their regular performance, and that includes a lot of guys off of the bench. The whole team got to play in that game, which
you definitely need the role players stepping up to give you 15, 12 points, especially when you're missing Karis LeVert, Miles Turner, all these guys who can score the basketball. Jeremy Lamb also out. Obviously sad to see the Hornets go. I think a lot of people, they were doing so well earlier in the season. And a lot of people wanted to see LaMelo have a crack at the playoffs.
Yeah. But next year, they still have a good young team, and they're probably going to get a nice draft pick.
Yeah, 100%. That's it. The second East playing clash, we had the 7th seed Boston Celtics taking on the surging 8th seed Wizards. While the Wiz looked good in the first half, they ended up losing the second half by 20 points, mostly due to a Jason Tatum masterclass. He had 50 points, 17 from 17 from the line, and hit 5 3-pointers. Unfortunately for the Wiz, Russ and Beal combined for 16 for 43 shooting, and the Wiz lost this one by 19. So Boston moves on to take on the Nets, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. So the final East playing game to decide the 8th seed saw the Wizards at home taking on the Pacers. This was close for about a quarter, and then the Pacers were outscored 83 to 54 over the next 2 quarters, Sergio, to effectively end this one early. Another triple-double from Sabonis was nowhere near enough, with the Wiz claiming the 8th seed with a resounding 142 to 115 victory. Serge, Boston watching to get through. Obviously, no surprises there. Tough finish to the season for the Pacers, with a lot of guys missing. It's crazy to see what's going to happen to the Pacers, because we obviously just spoke about them. They had guys missing. They beat the Hornets. But at the end of the season, there were a lot of things going around that Nate Bjorkum, the coach, had lost the players. There was a lot of infighting. We'll probably talk about this once the season's over, when we preview the next season. But the Pacers have some maneuvers to make. Their team isn't right the way it is.
No, they need to structure things around Sabonis. And if he's having issues with the coach, which I've heard as well, they need to get rid of the coach. Sabonis is a talent, a generational talent. He's only going to get better. He's 23 or 24 years old. So they really need to move with that. And they're just, I think they have to take decisions in the offseason, and I think they will.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say the Miles Turner and Sabonis fit doesn't really work. They're both natural centers, both probably a little bit too slow to play the four. Their foot speed's not good enough. But I think there's a couple of trades coming with Indiana next year to maybe make them better. And I'm also hoping, unless Kristaps Porzingis goes nuts in these playoffs, there might be a Kristaps Porzingis to Indiana trade, and with maybe Dallas sneaking Miles Turner off and a couple of shooters. But that's way down the line. That's way down the line, Serge. So that's the East done. Let's move on to the West. To get the West play-in started, we had the 10th place San Antonio Spurs taking on the 9th place Grizzlies in Memphis. The Spurs got down big early, which couldn't have been what Coach Pop wanted. It was 33-7 at one point in the first quarter, but as usual, the Spurs would fight back and even take a small lead in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, DeJounte Murray's 10-point, 13 rebound, 11 assist, triple-double, and Rudy Gay's 21 points off the bench were not enough to top a combined 67 points from Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, and Jonas Valanciunas, who also grabbed 23 huge rebounds and 3 blocks. Serge, for the second year in a row, the Spurs missed the playoffs.
Yeah, this is another team that needs to restructure their lineup. DeMar DeRozan just hasn't turned out to be what they expected. I mean, he shot a poor 5 for 21 in that game, and he's supposed to be your go-to guy. The Spurs have a lot to think about. I hope they get a team, a few playoff chances. As you know, I don't know how much longer Pop is going to be coaching.
Yeah, exactly, and they've got a lot of young good. I think we talked about this earlier in the season. They've got so many good young players in this team. DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker. Derek White. I think there's probably a trade coming somewhere. They probably need a power forward. Rudy Gay. I love Patty Mills. I love Rudy Gay, but ship those guys off to a contender. They've got a couple of years left back in
33. Though, yeah, those guys need to have the whole team be young.
Yeah, 100%. Well. You're either losing games or you're making the playoffs. You can't be that in between the 8th, 9th seed because you end up going nowhere for years, unfortunately, in the NBA.
Sure.
The next game was what all NBA fans are waiting for. LeBron versus Steph. Lakers versus Warriors. The first half was not ideal for the 7th-place Lakers as they looked sluggish and the 8th seed Warriors looked determined on the defensive end. LeBron, AD, and Dennis Schroeder at one point were 2 for 22. A lot of the credit had to go to Draymond Green, who was a defensive menace in this game and finished with 3 blocks and 3 steals. Steph kept the score ticking for the Warriors with 37, but the second half was a different story. LeBron and AD got going, and the Warriors couldn't stop turning the ball over. AD would finish with 25 and 12, while LeBron would have a 22-point, 11 rebound, and 10 assist triple-double. LeBron also took a shot to the face from Draymond Green and would hit a game-clinching 3 over Curry to ice the game, while apparently seeing 3 baskets. Serge, the Lakers get through. Probably no big surprise there. We knew they were going to be one of the teams to make the playoffs, but they're taking on the Suns. But I want to talk first because, man, the internet exploded after LeBron got hit in the face, and he did get hit in the face. He had some funny comments after, but what are your thoughts on LeBron getting hit?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of insertion of a finger into the eyeball makes you see 3 rims, but overall, we talked about he did get hit with a finger and all that jazz, but there was a lot of flopping going on in the game coming from Anthony Davis, from him. The Lakers have kind of made a living off of that, and I think it's horrible. I think those guys should get fined.
Well, there was another moment in the fourth quarter where LeBron went down, and it was one of those moves where the guy tried to put the ball across the other side of his body, and LeBron went down. It looked like he got hit in the face with an elbow. There was no elbow. There was a phantom shot. There was nothing. And this is, I think, why people were a bit upset with LeBron because fair enough, he definitely got a finger in the eye. You could see the replay. He copped it. And again, Draymond went straight up as well. There was no malice in what he was trying to do. But LeBron's got this reputation now of, like, he makes things look so much worse than they are.
Yeah, it's bad for the game. I mean, we got kids watching this. It's supposed to be an honest sport, you know? We don't want it to turn into soccer as much as I love soccer, but in soccer, you have players taking dips and falls all over the place. But, if the referee notices, they get a yellow card.
Yeah, exactly. And like you're saying, they've got the flopping rules in the NBA. So let's use them. Let's
Let's make them
find
apply
these
to
guys.
superstars like Davis and LeBron.
Let's find these guys, or hey, let's give them a technical. If they're trying to get a foul drawn on the other team, and it's a bit of bullshit, let's give them a technical for flopping.
Yeah, it's a tough game to watch down the stretch. But the Lakers, you got to hand it to them. They put it together. Davis started off horrible. LeBron started off horrible. They're both shooting. I think at one point I looked between them, and was it Kuzma? They were 2 for 22 at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and Schroeder. No, it was Schroeder, AD, and LeBron, 2 for 22. A couple minutes before the first half.
Yeah, but they came back and they hit some pivotal shots, and LeBron just tossed up that 3-pointer. But I think it was all said with Steph Curry's look when he glanced, turns around, looks at him like, really? And
you hit a 3-pointer? So let's finish the play-in chat. And to finish the first ever non-bubble play-in tournament, the Grizzlies traveled to San Fran to take on Steph and the Warriors. It wasn't a great first half for the Warriors, even though Steph would have 17 in the half. The Grizz defense made the Warriors work hard for their 49 points, and Memphis would take a 13-point lead into the half. A 9-point three-quarter from Steph and much better D would bring the Warriors within 5 to finish a third. While Memphis seemed to keep an arm's length and just ahead in the fourth, the Warriors would tie it at 97-all with 1 minute to go after 3 Jordan Poole free throws. Both teams would miss late shots and the Warriors would send it to overtime after being down 10 with 3 minutes to go. Grayson Allen then would hit 2 3-pointers to take the Grizzlies into the lead, but Draymond would get one of his own to bring the Warriors back within 1. Jordan Poole would hit a huge 3 to take the Warriors up 2, but Xavier Tillman would hit a 3 to give Memphis a 1-point lead. Morant would then hit a tough floater and then another to seal the win for Memphis. Steph finished with 39 points and 7 turnovers, but Ja would finish with 35 points and was huge in overtime. Serge, wow. The young Grizzlies knock off Steph and the Warriors, and they're headed to the playoffs.
Yeah, this was a surprise. I wasn't picking this one either. They just showed they showed resolve in the moments that they had to. They lost a 10-point lead going into that overtime. The momentum's all with Golden State, but they held tough. They had players come off the bench like Jason. I forget his name. They had players.
Grayson Allen.
Come out in the in overtime and just hit 2 3-pointers just straight off the bat. So they had pivotal moments, and Ja just down the stretch with those drives, and also taking advantage that Steph Curry had 5 fouls. It was very smart from his side.
It was a great team defensive effort by the Grizz, who didn't have Jonas Valanciunas a lot of the game. He fouled out in I believe the fourth quarter, but he only played just under 20 minutes because he was in foul trouble the whole game. But man, you got to love this Memphis team. They're young, they're gritty. Tyler Jenkins, their coach, seems to get everything out of every player they have, and they're headed to the playoffs.
The fans in Memphis have a lot to look forward to, and it's going to be fun.
Oh man,
in the playoffs. Ja Morant's just going to go nuts. That guy reminds me so much of a Westbrook, but I think he's a better shooter. Yeah, played so well. The main thing with this game, when you look at why it went down this way, is that Golden State's just very, very short on rotation. They basically played with 7 players, and you have Memphis rotated 9 or 10. But yeah, they just depend heavily on Steph Curry scoring 40, 50 points.
Yeah, every night.
Even like, we got to take our hats off to Wiggins. Wiggins in the 2 play-in games, he played quite well. And and towards the end of the season, he was growing. So I look forward to seeing Wiggins in the mix with Clay and everyone next year.
Well, that's the last thing I was going to say before we get into the playoffs. It's a disappointing end to the season for the Warriors.
Oh, very disappointing. Very disappointing. I mean, I don't think anyone thought Steph Curry wasn't going to be in the playoffs after this kind of season he had. He's in the final.
MVP candidate.
Yeah,
it's Draymond Green, also Defensive Player of the Year, and they end up missing the playoffs. But I'm sure we'll have a chat about this in a couple of months before the next season starts. But
Yeah,
that's way away. But
Draymond Green needs to learn how to make layups. He's just looking to pass the ball. He missed a layup. And he didn't even hit the rim in the last play.
It's not so much the layup. He's got a terrible floater. Like that's like your job is not to hit mid-range jump shots. It's little floaters, layups, dunks, and three-pointers once a game, like the three-pointer. So Draymond has to get better with that. His defense is all world. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. Just we'll say that, but next year, man, with James Wiseman fully fit, I don't know what's going to happen with Oubre and Klay Thompson come back. Beware the wounded Warriors, I'd say.
Yeah, Oubre might get traded, I think.
But Serge, play-ins, kaput, done. Right. It is time to talk about the NBA playoffs of 2021. Let's kick it off where we started the play-ins in the Eastern Conference. The first matchup, the number 1 Philadelphia 76ers taking on the number 8 Washington Wizards. Serge, I've tried to come up with a key matchup for all of these games. Let me know if you've got a different one, but I think this is going to come down to the point guards on these teams. Simmons versus Westbrook. I think you know what Joel Embiid's going to give you. He's probably going to dominate the paint. He's probably going to kill the Wizards. But if they can stop Simmons, and if Westbrook can really have a good series, it gives them a bit more of a chance, the Wizards, to at least win a few games.
For sure. I was looking at the other way around, that Simmons is going to be very, very hard for Westbrook to get around.
So I think Simmons also will spend Westbrook a bit of time on Bradley Beal. Yeah. Simmons is so good in defense that he can really defend anybody. And I think Bradley Beal might be his matchup in this series. Because he's going to be that big scorer. They're going to rely for Wizards to win anything in this series. Bradley Beal's going to have to score 40 plus points every game.
Yeah, plus another 30 from Westbrook.
Yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on this matchup, Serge? What are your predictions?
I think this could be an easy series for Philadelphia because Washington just doesn't size up well with them. I'd say 4-1 for Philadelphia.
4-1. I've got the exact same prediction. I think the 76ers is going to win in 5. I think the Wizards have to get a bit lucky and play out of their skins to win that one game as well, to be honest.
Yeah. I'll be rooting for the Wizards, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm an underdog man. I like to go for the underdog. Next one, we have number 2 Brooklyn Nets taking on the number 7 Celtics. What's your key matchup here for this one, Serge?
Tatum Durant.
Yeah. It's hard to go past that because most likely they're both going to be defending each other a lot of this series as well.
The other key matchup is going to be, I don't think this is even really comparable because he can't guard him. I don't think Kemba Walker can really guard Kyrie, but that's going to be a matchup to watch too.
The only way I believe that Boston have a chance in this series, obviously not having Jaylen Brown is a huge loss as well. They're going to need their bench to step up, but we're going to have to see vintage Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is going to have to be the guy that we knew a few years ago playing at Charlotte, scoring 30 a night. That's the only way Boston have a chance.
Agreed. I'm picking the sweep there. I think Brooklyn.
Oh, you got the sweep. My prediction for this one, I've got the Nets in 5. I think the Celtics can probably steal one game at home, but oh man, it's hard. Like we're going to probably say this every time one series finishes and the Nets progress, but when you have Durant, Harden, and Kyrie Irving, there's 3 guys that you have to have your best defender on.
That's the most talented trio you've ever seen, or I've ever seen.
Offensively, especially.
For sure.
Yeah. Like you can just give it to one of them and go, we need you to play a bit of ISO, get us a bucket.
It's like you have 3 alphas on one team that you'd rarely see that.
But the question is, will the Celtics be able to expose it? Defense. Defense is always going to be the Nets struggle. But, man, if you can score 130, 140 a game, does defense even matter?
Yeah.
The next one. This is to be the biggest. This is the biggest series in the East. It keeps propping up every year, but the number 3 Milwaukee Bucks are taking on the number 6 Miami Heat, who have knocked the Bucks out in each of the last 2 playoff series. Key matchup, I think, is obvious one here. It's Bam Adebayo versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Bam has almost been the Giannis stopper the last couple of years, Serge.
Yeah, Miami has had a good system of pushing him to the middle and just congestion the middle so he can't drive. And they're just very, very defensive minded. They're well coached. I do think that this is the year that Giannis gets past them, though.
I hope so. I do hope so. I shouldn't be a Miami fan because I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. There's history, but I like seeing the underdog win and the Heat as well. Like, no one thought they were going to go far this year, to be honest. They was a bit lucky last year, but I don't know. This is the hardest one to pick, I think. Bam Adebayo last couple of years has been Giannis kryptonite, if you could. And the Bucks like to let teams, they don't let anyone into the paint. They like to let teams shoot threes. And Miami can hit their threes, man. They have shooters.
Yeah, if Hero shows up and starts playing a little bit more consistently, they have Duncan Robinson too, who's just probably the sharpest shooter at the moment, I think.
Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, if all of those guys can be shooting okay from three, well, it's going to be hard for the Bucks. But hey, let's see what that Drew Holiday signing really does for you in the playoffs.
I think that's going to be what's pushing them over them right now. And I'm picking them to win in 6.
You've got the Bucks in 6. I have the Bucks in 7. So we both picked the same teams. These are the obvious ones. This one is a little bit harder, Serge. Both welcome back to the playoffs. Number 4 Hawks and the number 5 New York Knicks. This was a hard one for me to pick, like a really key matchup. But I've gone with the power forwards. Julius Randle was just probably outside the top 3 in MVP in the MVP race this year. So if Atlanta want to beat New York, they're going to have to find a way to stop him. And John Collins is probably going to spend a lot of his time. Mark and Julius Randle, 2 different players, different body types as well. Julius Randle is a beast down low. Serge, what do you think about this series?
It's going to be a good series. I think on paper, Atlanta should have the edge, but I'm going with the Knicks. And this one could be 7 games.
I think almost the key matchup in this series might be the coaches, Nate McMillan versus Tom Thibodeau. They've both got a lot of vets, especially both teams traded for a lot of vets this year. Derrick Rose, Gallinari coming off the bench. I think the benches are going to have a really big say, especially D Rose, Gallinari. Some of these guys, they're going to have to step up. D Rose especially.
For sure. I mean, D Rose has been pivotal, I think, for the Knicks since the trade, and just that experience helps. D Rose, Taj Gibson, those guys have been through series, and Tom Thibodeau, he's been to the conference finals many times. We never made it to the finals in Chicago, but it's a team that's tested. It's got a few veterans and a lot of young players with energy. RJ Barrett's been playing great. I like the Knicks, and I'm rooting for the Knicks. We ruined their lives for so many years being a Bulls fan, so I kind of empathize with them, and I'm pushing for the Knicks to take this series.
Well, I'll ask you a prediction in a second. Just it's going to be a really good series. Let's see what Trae Young can do in his first playoffs as well. Trae Young's been great since he's come into the league. Obviously, just behind Luka, losing the Rookie of the Year, but he has been sensational. He's one of the best passers. The guy can hit threes like Steph Curry from just about anywhere. Is he going to take that step up? And because if the Hawks are going to get through, I think he's going to have to be the guy that is getting 30 points a game.
Yeah, so I think this series is going to be tough for him. They're going to swarm him, and he hasn't been in the playoffs. It's a different beast, the playoffs.
Exactly. A lot of guys on both teams haven't been in the playoffs. Or haven't been in the playoffs in a little while. But let's get your prediction, Serge. What do you think this series is going to end up?
I think the Knicks are going to take it in 7.
I've got the exact same prediction. There's something about the Knicks, that defense. Tom Thibodeau just has them. Just no one can score over 100 against them, and I think they'll find enough points with D Rose and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett. And here we go. We're both predicting the Knicks to make the second round of the NBA playoffs.
That's going to be a fun series. I recommend that to everyone. I think that series is going to be gritty and it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the East. Let's finish up with the West. We just found out who's playing the Jazz, but here it is. The number 1 Jazz are taking on the newly playoff-bound Memphis Grizzlies. This is going to be a hell of a series. I think the Jazz have a little bit too much power. Donovan Mitchell is supposedly ready to come back. Mike Conley's just coming back as well. So it looks like Utah's going to have just about a full strength team. What are your thoughts when you think about this series? Straight up, Serge.
Well, you just mentioned an if Donovan Mitchell is full, recouped, 100% ready to go, then Utah's going to have an easier time getting through the Grizz. But if not, we could see the Grizz muster a little bit of kind of momentum with these last 2 wins, and they could surprise them in a couple of games, especially at the beginning. If everyone's healthy, it's probably 4-1.
Yeah. I was looking at this one. I was trying to think of the key matchup. And I was thinking Donovan Mitchell versus Ja Morant, but I think both teams are solid defensively. I think the centers are going to be what matters in this game. Valanciunas has been great for the Grizzlies all season. Obviously fouled out today, and they won without him. And you also have Rudy Gobert, one of the best defensive players in the league, 2-time defensive player of the year. This is going to be a crazy series, especially Utah love to shoot threes. They average like 45, 50 3-pointers a game. Memphis don't shoot a lot of threes, but defensively, they're not going to give you open threes.
No, not at all. They're both defensive-minded teams, and Ingles, your Aussie there, just popping threes all day is always high risk. You got to be on that guy.
Yeah. Well, their bench, I think the bench is what separates Utah probably from Grizz in this. You've got Clarkson, Joe Ingles, and Derek Favors coming off the bench.
Get man of the year.
Yeah. Oh, he'll be close. Ingles isn't far away either. Ingles passing. Clarkson, I think, shooting just dipped a little bit towards the second half of the season. But it's going to be an interesting series. I really hope Memphis don't get swept in this one. You never know. The Jazz could just turn it on like they did much of the season. What are you predicting in this one, Serge?
4-1.
4-1. I've got the Jazz in 5 as well. Seems like most of our predictions are pretty similar, especially with a lot of the 1 and 8 matchups. Moving on, this is going to be a cracker of a series, Serge. The number 2 Phoenix Suns. They're back in the playoffs for the first time since, I believe, 2010. They're taking on the number 7 Los Angeles Lakers, the last year's champions. This key matchup. It's a key matchup of ball handlers. This one was an easy one for me, Serge. We got CP3 taking on LBJ, LeBron versus Chris Paul. Bring this series on, Serge.
Yeah, here we have 2 friends, 2 veterans. I think 37 and 36 now. Friends,
Banana Boat boys,
getting to play against each other. It's going to be a fun series to watch those 2 interact. If the Lakers are healthy, which is still an if, complete. I know they're playing, but I don't know. LeBron looked a bit dusty. Davis still looks a bit dusty. And in a 7-game series, people get tired. So this series is one of them that everyone's picking the Lakers to win, but I think it could go either way.
I think this has the potential to be the longest series in the West. I just think that I don't think Memphis are going to give the Lakers anything. I don't think there's going to be a lot of blowouts in this series. Chris Paul won't let that happen. Devin Booker as well, man. Devin Booker's first playoff series, same as DeAndre Ayton, but Booker has been chomping at the bit for years for his team to make the playoffs. Here he is. First playoff series. Is he going to make a splash?
I think so. I think it's his time. And he's just being boosted game after game by Paul, which gives him that confidence. He's telling him to take over games. He's telling him to shoot. He's telling him to believe in himself, which Devin Booker never had problems really believing in himself, but believing in himself where he could take a team through the playoffs and take them to the next level. And I think this is the time for the Suns to go. DeAndre Ayton's been playing spectacular. He's very consistent now. He knows his role. I was looking at a fact the other day that his first 3 years in the playoffs, his stats are better than Dwight Howard's. Sorry, not in the playoffs, in the regular season.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, he's a very consistent player without being like brilliant. But they're going to need his defense probably more than anything in this playoffs. He's going to be taking on Andre Drummond, Anthony Davis, probably a little bit of Montrezl Harrell. I don't think Marc Gasol will probably get too many minutes, but they need Booker and Ayton to be better versions of themselves if they want to make it through against the Lakers, who I think the Lakers were the best defensive team this year. So the Lakers don't give you much. They defend really hard. Serge, predictions. Predictions for this series.
It's a hard one. I didn't even have it decided in my mind when we were talking about this. I want to say the Lakers lose, but I know they're not going to. I don't know. This is
It's
a
so
hard
hard
one for me.
This is so hard. I'm the same. Like, I've grown up not liking the Lakers. I love Kobe as a player, but I've hated the Lakers. I've got the Lakers in 7. I've just got to give them that benefit of doubt. They're going to win one more game.
I'm gonna go, and this one might be a little bit out there, but I'm gonna go Suns in 6.
Suns in 6, Sergio.
Yeah.
Wow, bit of alliteration. That is. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Let's move on. Number 3, Denver Nuggets taking on the number 6 Trailblazers. This is a really interesting matchup for me. I think Denver win this series a little bit easier if they have a full strength Jamal Murray. But they don't, Serge. We know he's gone. He did his ACL. So this series becomes a hell of a lot closer because the Trailblazers finished the season on an absolute tear to get into 6th place and avoid the play-in tournament. And, this series, Denver have been so good all year, but this series, for me, just could go anyway. They don't have a lot of great guards at the moment, Denver, missing so many. Obviously, traded Gary Harris. Jamal Murray's injured. So much is up to Will Barton and Monte Morris, Facundo Campazzo. These guys have to step up and give Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. a hand.
Yes, I think this series is going to depend on how Michael Porter Jr. plays, because I think we know what we're going to get from Jokic, which is always spectacular and has been very consistent this year. But I think Portland, off of the strength of their 2 guards, the fact that Nurkic is healthy, I think Portland is going to surprise them.
Yeah. So when I thought about the key matchup in this, I was trying to think of positions, and it's hard to match up the positions just because they don't have a lot of guards, Denver, playing at the moment, and that's pretty much the opposite of Portland. They've got Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. What's his name's a guard to me? The guy they traded from
Gary Trent?
The guy they traded for Gary Trent. Norman Powell. So they've got 3 guys who can score and handle the ball. So I looked, the only way Portland you've got to stop Jokic. And Yusuf Nurkic, an ex-Denver, he got shipped out of Denver because they were trying to figure out who their starting center for the future was. They told Nurkic it wasn't him. They said it was Nikola Jokic. So they've got the battle of the Eastern European big boys. And Nurkic is going to have to, he's not known as a defender, but he's going to have to do a good job, and he's going to really have to put up some points and do something extra, I think, for Portland in this series.
Yeah, we're missing a body. Collins would have been good to have. They say he might come back for the second if they progress in the playoffs. He would have been good to have because he's a little bit more agile than Nurkic. To guard Jokic. But again, when you have great players like LeBron, like Steph Curry, you can't really
Stop them.
You can't really stop them. You just kind of try to control them.
Yeah, limit them.
Like if he doesn't have a triple-double, you're winning. You know what I mean? Like Jokic is a guy who, if he's not going to outshoot you or just muscle you in, he's going to pass the ball and he's going to do assists. And that's what he does great too for like a big man.
Yeah, unbelievable. Serge, let's get a prediction on this one. What have you got in this series?
Blazers in 6.
Ooh, now all our predictions are starting to differ a little bit. I think the Nuggets are going to get them in 7 in this one. I think this is going to be a great series. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Portland win this one in 6 either. Just the way they played. A couple of hot games from Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And I don't think Denver have a chance.
I think Dame's coming into rhythm. He was battling an injury for a while, but he's looking good now. And it's his, it's Dame time. Playoff time, it's Dame time.
It is Dame time. Let's hope we see it because there's no one apart from really Steph Curry that's as good to watch when they're heating up and playing their best like Damian Lillard. When he is hitting shots from absolutely everywhere, it's It's unbelievable. But Serge, that brings us to the last West matchup, the last playoff matchup we're going to have a chat about. Replay from last year. The number 4 LA Clippers taking on my number 5 Dallas Mavericks. Serge, what are your thoughts when this series comes on? Last year was a great series. It was steeped in controversy from obviously Marcus Morris, whether it was dirty or not, sliding his foot under Luka's ankle when he'd already rolled his ankle. It was a chippy series. Dallas were 2-2 before Kristaps Porzingis got injured and couldn't play the rest of the series.
Actually, in one game too, I think.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this series? Because this one is really hard for me to talk about.
I know it's hard for you to talk about. It's hard for me to talk about it because it's hard for you to talk about it. I just don't know if Dallas acquired the pieces to kind of threaten the Clippers more than what happened last year. I don't know. The cohesion between Porzingis and Doncic isn't quite there. The Clippers did get better. They do have a better team this year. So I don't know. I think it's going to be probably like 4-1 for the Clippers.
Oh man, I tried to decipher. I'm not sure which one is like my heart and which one's my head. My heart's probably down here. But I try to figure this out using my head and my heart. My heart is telling me Dallas in 7. I just think that we are ready for the next evolution of Luka Doncic, which for me is Luka just saying, okay, I don't need 12, 13 assists in a game. I'm getting to the basket every time I get the ball, and I'm shooting free throws the rest of the game, which he can do.
I'm praying for that because he needs to go Harden on them. He needs to go James Harden on them. That's what he needs.
Luka needs to average 35, 36 in this series because we don't know what we're getting out of Porzingis. Porzingis has had an all right season. Apparently, his shooting percentages are as good as they've ever been, but defensively, he's been pretty woeful KP in the games he's played. And him and Doncic they've got a great pick and roll, but they just seem to be a little bit lost. I was looking at the key matchup on this game, and Paul George struggled last year. I think that he needs to have a good series for LA to win. And the key matchup with him, I'll put Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been great this year. And if Dallas want to make it out of this first round, he's probably going to have to average close to 25 points. He's going to have to hitting 4 or 5 3-pointers a game, defending hard. But my prediction, I've gone with my heart. I've got Dallas in 7, Serge, and you've got the Clippers in 5. Wow, it's a big difference, but there might be a shot of tequila or something on all these at the end of the playoffs, at the end of the first round. But
we'll figure it out. If we're off by a game, it's one shot. If we're off by 2 games, you have to do a double.
Yeah, definitely. After that, we're asleep. But that's it. That's all the matchups, and that's it for us today. We'll try to finish this up nice and quick, Serge. The next time you'll hear from us, we'll be talking ball about the playoffs because they will be well underway. Guys, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow our socials. Keep an eye on the beard growth as well. We're up to 71 days. The link is in the description if you'd like to donate. Serge, any plans for the rest of the night, bro? Just taking it easy?
No, I'm going out. Hitting the town,
LA.
Finally, life without masks.
Well, stop yawning, have a coffee, smash a tequila, and enjoy your night. Guys, we'll catch up with you in a couple of days. Enjoy the start of the playoffs. Peace. Play the music, Serge. Boom.